Good morning, everybody. Really nice to be here and really nice to see you all sitting on, is that waste or is it not waste? Definitionally, it might not be waste because it's been repurposed. Let's think about that for a while. So, a little bit about me. I think many of you know me. I just want to check something. We've already used the term circular economy a couple of times. Does everybody know the term circular economy? Yeah, good. Okay, fine. Well, in that case, my presentation is relevant. Uh, a little bit about us. So SOENECS is a research and innovation practice I set up nearly 5 years ago. We have a very diverse portfolio, and many people say I do far too many things, which is very true, but I quite enjoy it that way. So we're doing everything at the moment from helping churches become multifunctional buildings that will allow the community to come in, to running high-tech national trials using assets that are existing on the road called Pothole Spotter, where we're getting high-definition cameras, trying to understand how the road surface deteriorates so we can prevent potholes. Kat's already mentioned Tech Take Back. We're also we've done quite a bit in London, particularly in relation to planning and working with the likes of London Waste Recycling Board to try and understand how developers can actually put in place facilities for collecting recycling during the operational lifetime of the infrastructure. I'm also down as the Circular Economy Club. Some of you will know about Circular Economy Club. If you don't, please have a look at the Circular Economy Club. We've got 157 cities now that have their own local Circular Economy Club, and it's a free-to-join membership organisation for people that are interested in circular economy. I'm a mentor and now responsible for Europe, which is going to be quite interesting with Brexit. Okay, so waste. Is it a waste? Is it not? I found these a couple of days ago, and plastics. We've all heard about plastics in the last 2 years since the Blue Planet. Plastic was a wonder material. Some of these adverts are scary. Some of them are social history. 1950s, the first packaging of food in our supermarkets. I don't think you'd get away with a baby in cellophane anymore, but it was a wonder material. And fast forward to 2017, and plastics are now seen as the devil's material. This is how quickly things can change, and for me, a waste is a byproduct of somebody not understanding the materials. And when we're talking about construction, we've got some of the biggest challenges that this planet has ever seen. So we're looking at how do we create sustainable cities? How do we design new buildings and new infrastructure with a view to understanding how to not make it waste, but also have an understanding of the materials? Currently, Kat's already mentioned this. Half of the waste that we create in the UK is from construction, demolition and excavation. That's approximately, and I say approximately because as a bit of a data nerd, there is not enough good information on tonnages out there in relation to construction and demolition. There's approximately 100 million tonnes of construction, demolition and excavation waste arising. Now that's variable, and that is variable down to big scale projects like HS2, Crossrail, which produce huge amounts of excavated waste in particular. And this is a topic that we discussed with the Chief Scientific Officer report 2 years ago that was published by government. And there's a particular chapter called Construction and Demolition where we explored some of the challenges around construction, demolition and excavation waste, but also some of the solutions. This was published, it sort of like slipped out just before Christmas, so nobody really noticed it. But it's a very comprehensive overview of a number of challenges around waste management across all the sectors. And I'm looking around the audience and seeing a couple of authors of different chapters here. So it was written by experts rather than written by politicians. There might be a link. And in the construction sector, what we have is a huge challenge coming ahead. We know that the population of the world is growing, and we have to look at this on a global scale. And if the population is growing, then the urban population is growing, and that means that we're going to end up with significantly more construction and potentially significantly more waste. And that's where building a circular economy comes in. And for me, one of the things that I'm also doing is working with the Institution of Civil Engineers, where I chair the resource management panel. And we've been looking at the life cycle of infrastructure. And for me, there's 5 key areas. There's the design phase, the manufacture phase, the construction phase, the in-use phase, and the end-of-life, second life phase. And for us to think about how we manage wastes in the construction sector, we need to start thinking about these 5 stages, but also the interventions that could avoid waste being created. Because actually most waste is created as a result of not thinking properly about how something's designed. Now, last century, I did my dissertation at university on construction waste, and I went and sat on the side of a landfill site in East Sussex for a week in November, watching construction waste coming out the back of a bin lorry. It was quite cold, but it was very exciting. But it set into my mind that we were actually throwing away perfectly good materials. And as Kat's slide showed, what is defined as waste is sometimes very negligible and down to quality standards that might be a little bit tight, let's say. So there's a whole raft of people talking about how do we design out waste. And we've got some really interesting construction, architectural tools that are starting to be looked at. And for me, if any of you are designers or architects or constructors or in facilities management, it's no good just knowing about your own particular strata. You have to understand the whole life, because what we've done over the last 50 or 60 years is build to construct and then think about how the building is used in many cases. But there are some really good examples, and I picked this up, and this is their quote, not mine, so I'm not going to take credit for this. Doesn't look particularly exciting. This is a building in Seattle that they're claiming is the greenest commercial building in the world. And okay, looks can be deceiving, but what they've actually done is started to back it up with all of the things they've done to make it green. Whether or not you call it green is another matter, but they're looking at hydronic heat, walkability, solar, building neurology. Who's seen anything like that? That's an exciting waterless waste, composting toilets in a office block. Interesting. Water use, waterworks. They've looked at all of the systems that the building uses and tried to think of the best way to manage them to minimize the waste. And there's pages of things. Water washing of constructed wetlands, putting in bike racks. A lot of this we do, but what they're doing is they're actually focusing on, actually these are the things we've done rather than these are the things we have to do. And for me, that's where designing out waste and managing waste, it's about trying to do something because you want to avoid waste rather than doing it because you're told to. So we mentioned circular economy. There's a number of business models that you can use. A lot of what we're talking about today and over the waste zone is pretty much in the resource recovery and taking waste and reusing it. But in the construction industry, we've already got some tools that are there. So building information modeling, by definition, is circular if it's approached in the right way, if you look at the life cycle of the building. And we've got some really good examples of companies already looking at that. That's concrete walls that are made to look like brick. We've seen harvest maps that are being used to source materials similar to the way that the waste house did. We're starting to see some 3D printing. These are all 3D printed. What happens to the waste at the end of the lifetime? Good question. Uh, and that is actually, I think, for us, one of our challenges. The new materials that we're creating, have we thought about what happens to them at the end of the life? I'm going to leave you with one consideration, and I've had a Portuguese delegation and a Kenyan delegation the last week that I've been working with, and all of them have said, we're talking too much English, we're not talking international. So this is a matrix that I created about 5 years ago that's published. As an academic, we always like to have something published. How I got it through, oh no, I was the editor. The international language of the emoji. We need to think about materials, how they're used, and what's best for them. So this is for household waste, materials along the top, treatment methodologies down the side, and the best way of managing that material. Are there any councillors here? Local authority councillors? No, good. I designed this for local authority councillors because they've got about 30 seconds to get it. And it does it in a simple way. People understand what an emoji is. A big green smiley is the way of managing that material. But what's really important, and the reason why I've got it in a material by material basis, is that different materials have different ways of being treated based on their properties. And that's what we need to think about when we're talking about waste. We need to think about their individual properties and understand how best to manage them. Thank you very much.